UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Nurmagomedov from Abu Dhabi this Saturday from the Etihad Arena. 12 fights on this full card here. Again, main evented in the Bantamweight division with Corey Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov. It is the first of two ranked bouts in the Bantamweight division as well. We have Marlon Chito Vera taking on Dumas and Figueiredo. That is not, though, the co-main event, because the co-main event is Shara Magomedov versus Michal Oleksiejczuk, as you see on the screen right now. And also on the main card, two more big-time fights. Well, Tony Ferguson's fighting Michael Chiesa, where Tony Ferguson, with a loss, I do believe, will break BJ Penn's record for most consecutive losses in UFC history. As well, we have a top 10 matchup in the women's strawweight division. We have got Mackenzie Dern taking on Lupi Godinez. So we've got 12 fights on this card again from Abu Dhabi this Saturday. And folks, if you haven't yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more MMA here on the channel. We do UFC, PFL, and Bellator, because tomorrow, PFL playoffs, we will have the heavyweights and the women's flyweights. In the main event, Denis Goltsov takes on Tim Johnson. Also, Dakota Chieva takes on her toughest opponent to date in the one-loss Jenna Bishop. So that's coming at you tomorrow, but let's do it. First of 12 fights in the UFC's heavyweight division. It's Shamil Gaziev and Don'Tale Mayes. Okay, so I understand Shamil Gaziev's kind of just a joke in the MMA community now after his last fight. Because, again, his last fight was absolutely horrendous. They give him a main event spot against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, where he arguably wins a round in that fight. Yeah, I would say you give him... Would you give him the first or the second round of that fight? I don't know. Probably you give Gaziev the first round. Other than that, he doesn't do anything. Because, again, and, you know, he gets in there, he loses the fight due to exhaustion at the end of the first round. He lost the fight because he's out of shape. It was horrible. Now, he was not ready for 5 rounds. Jairzinho Rozenstruik really showed, again, the difference between a top 15 fighter in the weight class and a guy like Shamil Gaziev, who's simply just not ready for the top 15 yet. But, I mean, Gaziev literally went in there and, was just breathing so heavy to the point where he would throw out his mouthpiece just so he could breathe better. And he would give the deep breaths, It was horrible. It was horrible watching the fight. Don'Tale Mayes' opponent, though, is he the guy to beat Gaziev in this spot? I don't know. Mayes, right, is 4-4 in the UFC, coming off a win against Kyle Machado, where he beats him by unanimous decision. I think Shamil Gaziev will be able to get his wrestling going against Don'Tale Mayes. Jairzinho Rozenstruik has heavily improved his wrestling game, and that's something that I pointed out in the Shamil Gaziev Rozenstruik fight. That's why I thought Gaziev was going to be able to get things going in that fight, was because of the wrestling game. Obviously, he didn't do that. Now, against Don'Tale Mayes, I do think Gaziev is able to get the fight down. Obviously, again, Rozenstruik has showed an improved wrestling defensive game. Again, is that Rozenstruik improving, or is that just, Gaziev's not very good? It's probably a mixture of both, in all fairness. But I do think he's able to get Don'Tale Mayes down, and with that being said, I do think Shamil Gaziev will be able to find his pathway to victory through the grappling. When you look at Gaziev's one win in the UFC, it's the win over Martin Buday, right? Fight doesn't hit the mat, except for a little bit in the first round, but it's mostly a striking affair where Gaziev does knock Buday out in the second round. Now, again, is Buday the best UFC fighter? He, barely won a fight against a 47-year-old Andrei Arlovski in his last one by split decision. It was god-awful horrible in the prelims of UFC 303. So I don't really put too much stock into that victory for Gaziev. It's just Don'Tale Mayes isn't that good in his own right? Again, 4-4 in the UFC. The wins: Roque Martinez, Josh Parisian, Andrei Arlovski, Kyle Machado. The losses: Cyril Gane, Rodrigo Nascimento, Augusto Sakai, Rodrigo Nascimento. So fun fact, Don'Tale Mayes, even if he loses to Shamil Gaziev, his only losses in the UFC will be to former heavyweights who have headlined a card in the UFC, because Gane's obviously headlined, Nascimento's main evented now, and Augusto Sakai once upon a time was main eventing UFC shows as well, and Gaziev actually has too. So again, Don'Tale Mayes' opponents on paper not that bad. The wins, though, again, just simply aren't very good, right? Lost twice to Nascimento. Roque Martinez, very short stint in the UFC. Josh Parisian, again, the same. That was the fight where Don'Tale Mayes again got Josh Parisian in north-south position and literally just humped his face with his cup. I'm not joking. That actually happened in that fight. Anyways, Mayes, though, his best performance to date definitely is the knockout victory over Andrei Arlovski. The problem is, again, though, Andrei Arlovski was 45 in that fight. So I think Gaziev is able to win. I'm not confident at all in this guy winning a fight. I just think he's better than Mayes. I think he's got more ways to win this fight. And I don't think, again, it's not a 5-round fight. And, you know, and Mays is nowhere near the level of Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik, again, there is a huge discrepancy between, I would say, the top like 14 in the UFC's heavyweight division and then everybody else. The reason I say that is because 15 is Rodrigo Nascimento. I don't think he's all that. But everyone kind of passed that. And I'm not saying these are top guys, right? I'm truly not. I'm not, again, like, am I saying Rozenstruik's going to win a title one day like Joe Rogan said at one point in time? No. But again, once you get past, 12 and above, right? That's where Rozenstruik is. He's 12. Anything under him, Romanov, De Lima, Nascimento, these guys are not very good, right? But the top 12, given there is Tuivasa and all these guys, but again, on Tuivasa's best night, he will destroy guys like De Lima and Nascimento. There's just such a gap in the UFC's heavyweight division once you get past the top 12, because again, past the top 12, you get these low-level heavyweights. Yeah, there's some guys in limbo like Romanov, like De Lima, like Nascimento, who are better than the low-level guys, but there's simply put, just a lot of low-level guys in general as well. I'm not saying either Gaziev or Mays are that, but I just don't think they're ever top 15 potential. I don't think these guys are all that good. I'm taking Gaziev, though, to win the fight by first-round knockout. I just spent 5 minutes talking about a Shamil Gaziev fight. That was 5 minutes too long. Anyways, on to our next one here. You've got a big favorite here in Caio Fernandes coming in from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, taking on the UAE zone in Muhammad Yahya. For Muhammad Yahya, 0-1 so far in the UFC, dropping his last fight over in Abu Dhabi, I do believe it was, by unanimous decision over to Trevor Peek. Peek went in there, winning that fight, out-grappled Yahya, outstruck him, and Yahya ended up losing the fight 30-27. On the opposing side, you got Caio Fernandes here, who is 0-1 in the UFC, but had a very close fight in his first one against Mark Diakiese, who was the opener of the Sao Paulo card last year in 2023. Diakiese did what Diakiese's been doing recently. It's just been going in there, putting on the wrestling boots and out-grappling guys and out-wrestling guys and just simply putting guys on their back, and that's what Diakiese did to Fernandes. But all around, I do think Fernandes, I think he's got a slightly decent upside in the UFC. I just don't think the UAE Warrior, that's Muhammad Yahya's nickname is, I just don't think he's very good. He fought a lot of guys who really aren't that great heading into the UFC. Like, yeah, he beat a guy like Yazid Kuchain coming into the promotion, but again, Kuchain's been, at the time he was 10-3, now at the time he was 7-3, or I believe, 7-2, now he's 10-5, because again, the guy really didn't see all that much success in PFL Europe, lost back-to-back fights in PFL Europe to Dylan Tuck and to Ignacio Capella, both by finish. So I just don't think Yahya's fought the best guys. He comes in, loses to Trevor Peek. I think Fernandes is better. I really like the striking game more out of Fernandes in this one. If you go watch this guy back in LFA and in Shoot-Though as well, but primarily his two back-to-back wins before heading in the UFC and LFA, they're both kick finishes. One's a head kick, one's a kick to the liver. Both, again, in the first round. One's in 90 seconds, the other one's in less than a minute. Fernandes has power with his kicks. He's going to threaten a lot in this fight with that kicking game he can apply, and I do think he's going to give Yahya a lot of problems in the feet. Just because, again, if Trevor Peek was able to, find successive moments on the feet against Yahya, and again, more than just moments, Peek was able to win. And Peek is a guy who, yes, he does just throw with reckless, intent, but he's very hittable as well, and Yahya didn't do much of that in that fight. Really couldn't get to Peek at all. I think Fernandes is going to pick his spots better than Trevor Peek, and I really think he's going to go in there and just dominate this fight. I think he does get a finish. I'm taking Caio Fernandes to win the fight by second round TKO. Eventually, I think he's going to find the shot, and I think it's going to be an accumulation of damage. Eventually, he will, again, put Yahya down, and I do think eventually he's going to beat him. I think, again, it's a way better matchup for him in this one compared to the Diakiese fight. Again, Diakiese really just wrestling heavy at this point. Fernandes is going to get a guy in Yahya who will strike with him, and I do think Fernandes is going to win it pretty handedly. I'm going to take Caio Fernandes to win the fight by second round TKO. Our next fight is Sergikas Dumas and Denis Tiuliulin. Already talked about that fight when that fight was originally scheduled for Saudi Arabia a couple months ago, or I guess last month. So we're just going to roll that and then get on to the next fight after. On to our next one here. You've got Sergikas Dumas coming in on short notice in replacement of Abu Zaitar to take on Denis Tiuliulin, who is 11-9. And again, that kind of just, screams at you a little bit. It comes off the board. Again, you have a fighter who is 11-9. No offense and no disrespect. This is a type of record you would see for a women's MMA fighter. It just is. This is a Courtney Casey type record. Seriously, it is, right? 11-9, that's kind of what you would expect. Denis Tiuliulin's a guy who's 1-4 in the UFC. I'll be honest with you, I don't know why he's still around. I just don't. I don't know why he's still even in the UFC. It was an interesting fight, don't get me wrong, with Abu Zaitar. I thought it was very interesting because, again, Zaitar hasn't really been the same guy, and again, he's, Zaitar's not the greatest. Now, Sergikas Dumas, for as bad as he has looked in the past is a guy who has beat Abu Dhabi before. And again, I've never been impressed in particular with Sergius Dumas. I'll just be completely honest with you. I was not impressed in the Josh Fremen fight where he got submitted. Obviously, he got poked in the eye a couple times against Nurmagomedov Ruzboyev where he ended up losing in Atlantic City. That's not his fault, but still, he was not. I've never been the most impressed with Dumas. The most impressed I've been with the guy was when he fought back in Icon, and he was like the guy that they kind of built that George Masvidal era of Icon FC around, when he was winning those fights by head kick and finish really early, or even when he got the main event spot against Aaron Highbaugh. That's when I was more impressed with Dumas. Now, again, he just feels like another guy to me. I do like his striking. Again, Dumas has shown the wrestling capability as well. It is in the bag, but in this fight, again, it everywhere should scream off, again, Sergius Dumas should be able to have his way, whether it be on the ground or whether it be on the feet too. Again, Dumas does have the ground game, and Denis Tiuliulin is so bad down there. 4 losses by submission so far, and again, you look at every single fight he's had in the UFC. Alisab Khizraev was able to get him down and submit him in the second round. The Jamie Pickett fight he won, he was able to dominate Pickett on the feet. That's the one spot Tiuliulin can get you against the guy who's not the best striker like Pickett. But still, I'd take Sergius Dumas in a striking fight over Denis Tiuliulin. And then he loses to Junyon Park, he gets taken down. Gregory Rodriguez takes him down and elbows the absolute living hell out of him on that card in Boston. And then Christian Leroy Duncan knocks him down and finishes him in the second round. Again, everything points to a Sergius Dumas finish in this fight, and really, it's whatever way he wants to win it. That's kind of how I feel about this fight. I think it's really one-sided. I think Dumas is the way better fighter in this one, and I understand he's taking it on short notice, but I'm just not impressed with Denis Tiuliulin at all. I'm going to take Sergius Dumas to win the fight by first-round knockout. Again, it will be Dumas' first finish in the UFC. I understand that, but the guy has knockout capability. I have seen this guy go into Icon before, and I've seen him just totally melt guys. Again, go watch the DeWitt Jackson fight back on the first George Masvidal ran Icon FC card. It's on Fight Pass. He goes in there, he head kicks the guy in the first round. It's a fight that actually wasn't even, promoted going into the card. Like, they wasn't even on the fight card. I remember on Tapology, it's just, this guy, Sergius SD Dumas at the time, was on the card, and he ended up winning by first round knockout. So I've always, again, kind of had my eye on Dumas since that point. And yes, I haven't been too impressed so far in the UFC, but this is really the fight where he can go out there and just put on a very good performance and put his name back on the map. Because again, this is a fight that let's just be honest, he's been gifted the Denis Tiuliulin fight. Guys want this fight because it's a way to get a highlight reel knockout against a 36-year-old Russian who's 11-9. Guys, Tiuliulin's not very good. Sergius Dumas is going to dominate. Give me Pensacola, Florida's own Sergius Dumas to win the fight by first round knockout. Okay, on to our next one here. Jai Herbert takes on Rolando Bedoya. Interesting fight here. Bedoya is a guy who is still yet to win a fight in the UFC. He is 0-2 after back-to-back losses to Chaos Williams by split decision and to Song Ki-nan in his last one, again, by unanimous decision. Now he gets the Black Country banger in Jai Herbert. And for Jai Herbert, this is a guy who, does scare me at times, 36 years of age, or just scares me in terms of picking him in this fight. Now, don't get me wrong, Jai Herbert's a favorite, and I do think he's expected to win this fight, but I am a little bit concerned picking him here. Okay, hear me out. He's a minus 145 favorite, give or take, and by the way, real quick, before we get anything else, I am recording this video on, early Thursday morning, so if anything does change on this card, I will update you in the description down below if anyone pulls out of a fight, if we get a new fight or anything, again, I will change that, and I will put something in the description, so again, just for reference, if anything changes on this card. But again, I think Herbert's expected to win this fight. Obviously, he's the favorite. He does scare me in this one. He is 2-4-1 in the UFC. He's had close fights with decent guys. I'm looking at Ilia Topuria, right? He drops Ilia Topuria in that fight eventually, though he does get finished in the second round. But that was the closest Ilia has ever been to being finished and really just losing in the UFC so far. It's when Jai Herbert almost had him dead to rights in that first round. And Herbert's really just taken on a very tough strength to schedule so far, right? He comes in the UFC, has a very tough fight on Fight Island against Francisco Trinaldo. He loses. Then they run him into Renato Moicano. He loses. Beats Kamaworthy. Gets Ilia Topuria. Loses. Beats Kyle Nelson, which is aging all right. Has a draw against a very good guy in Ludovic Klein. And then loses his next fight to Fares Ziam, which is a little bit confusing, but he loses that fight about a year ago. Now you get a guy again who's 0-2 in Rolando Bedoya. And Bedoya has just gotten into fist fights so far in his UFC run, just back and forth, kind of wars in the feet, right? I mean, they're just, again, high output fights. Both guys are trading, not really, afraid of what's going to come back at him. That's impressive again, because Bedoya did get in that sort of fight with a very hard hitting guy in Chaos Williams. And Song Kenan again does hit fairly hard as well. Dropped Ian Machado Gary earlier on in Gary's career. But again, this is where Jai Herbert scares me. He's 36 years old. He's 9 years older than Bedoya. He's been hit a lot. He's very chinny. Now, Bedoya, as shown in the UFC so far, does not hit the hardest. He does not have that one-punch knockout power. He's going to try to drown you. He's going to try to overwhelm you with volume. Jai Herbert hits hard, and really, again, Jai Herbert's thing in Cage Warriors, when he was the Cage Warriors lightweight champion prior to heading to the UFC, again, his nickname is the Black Country Banger, right? Like, he was, his thing was to go out there and get into wars and just exchange with guys in the feet. Again, I am scared of that for him in this fight against Bedoya. Now, do I think he's able to go in there and outstrike Bedoya? Sure. Do I think he gets caught? There's a possibility. Again, Bedoya is not at the hardest, but still, again, these are MMA fights. Guys hit hard, and again, any perfectly timed shot can put a guy away. I am still going to lean towards Jai Herbert to win the fight, and I'm going to take Jai Herbert to take it by decision. I think it's a back and forth fight. I don't know if Herbert's got enough to get the finish. He's only gotten one TKO finish so far in the UFC, and it's worthy. But again, he's only been finished, he hasn't been finished in his last 3 fights, right? Hasn't even been dropped in his last 3 fights. The only time he's been dropped in the UFC, or the last time he's been dropped in the UFC, was that fight against Ilya back in, March of 2022. So again, the chin is always a concern with Jai Herbert. It just is. He doesn't take the most shots in his fights, which again, credit to him, because he stays out of the way of big power shots coming back at him. Again, I'm a little bit concerned for Jai Herbert in this fight. I am going to take him by decision. But again, he's expected to be a guy who's 0-2 in the UFC. I think the loser of this fight will be on their way out the promotion. So again, got to win this fight. I think Herbert gets it done. I think he goes out there and it just outstrikes Bedoya, but I do think we see a lot of points in this fight where these two guys are trading back and forth, but I do think Jai Herbert gets the upper hand on a lot of those exchanges. So give me the Black Country Banger, Jai Herbert to win the fight by unanimous decision. We go on to our next one here. Sam Hughes is still in the UFC. She's 8-6, coming out of Everett, Washington, and she'll be taking on the 25-year-old Russian in Victoria Dudakova. This is one of the fights of all time. Okay, Dudakova should win. Right? Like, everything points to a Victoria Dudakova victory. She is 2-0 in the UFC against Estela Nunes and Jinyu Fry, which are not the best fighters. But again, and if you've watched the channel before, I have never been high in Sam Hughes. I think I've picked against Sam Hughes in every single fight she's had. I have. I'm looking at my Tapology record with her. Yeah, I've literally picked against Sam Hughes. Obviously I picked Tisha Torres to beat her, excuse me. I had Luma Lukboni to beat her. I had Luana Pinheiro to beat her. I had Estela Nunes to beat her. She didn't. I had Elise Reed to beat her. She didn't. We had Pierre Rodriguez correctly to beat her. We had Jacqueline Amorim to beat her. She didn't. And we had Yasmin Yargi to beat Sam Hughes, and obviously she did. So again, I have picked against Sam Hughes in every single fight she's had in the UFC so far. So what is going to change in this fight? Exactly nothing. I'm going to pick Victoria Dudakova to win this fight. Now, Dudakova, she's all right. I think, again, she will get beat eventually once they get her out of this rotation of fighting low-level strawweights. This is a thing, too, right? We talked about in the heavyweight division earlier. Again, not to say Gaziev and Mays are those low-level guys, but you know who I'm talking about. At one point in the UFC, the UFC would willingly pay Chase Sherman, Josh Parisian, Roque Martinez, I'm forgetting Harry Hunsucker, the other guy. Who was the guy that Oleksiejczuk beat? Was it Hunsucker? I think it might have been. Jared Vandera. No, it was Vandera, not Hunsucker. They were willingly, even Parker Porter, they were willingly, employing these guys and putting them in fights in the Apex. All right. Sam Hughes is a little bit above the low-level strawweight rotation. Again, fighters like Elise Reed, Jinyu Fry, Victoria Leonardo's 125, but still, at one point I thought Vanessa Demopoulos was in this category, but apparently she's not. Really. But anyways, Estela Nunes, a good one. Right, like these fighters, again, these are the low-level strawweights. Again, is Sam Hughes a little bit above that? Sure, because she's beat Elise Reed and Estela Nunes. She's still not much better. She's 8-6, and like, seriously, what does Sam Hughes do that just completely, again, just changes the fight for you? She will not be able to outstrike Dudakova. Again, what Sam Hughes does, she will, if she's the better wrestler, she will try to out-volume her way to winning on the feet, and then she'll mix it up with the takedown and win rounds. I don't think that happens in this fight, because Dudakova is just going to be a better striker all around in this one. Yeah, did Jinyu Fry win the second round in their fight at UFC 294? She did. She took her down after Dudakova dropped her in the first. That's a little bit concerning, I'm not going to lie. Like, if Sam Hughes lucks her way into a takedown, she wins a round, and now all of a sudden, it's 1-1 going in the third. Now Sam Hughes only needs one more takedown to win the fight. That can be concerning when you have an 8-0 fighter taking on a fighter who's 8-6. Now, again, I know, MMA records don't mean everything. But, like, again, we pick against Sam Hughes in every fight she has. So, again, nothing's going to change here. We're taking Victoria Dudakova to win the fight. We just got to hope Dudakova can stuff a takedown. I would say Sam Hughes is about on the same level, I would think, grappling as Jinyu Fry. Yeah, give or take, I would say they're about on the same level. I mean, something a little bit interesting here, right? Jinyu Fry and Sam Hughes, I do believe, train together. I mean, I think Jinyu Fry is still at Fortis. I know Sam Hughes is. So there's something. Again, that was Dudakova's last opponent, albeit 10 months ago. But that's something, right? Again, Sam Hughes is training at that same camp. She probably helped Jinyu Fry prepare for Dudakova. It's probably a fight that Sam Hughes has been eyeing for at least a little bit. So obviously she knows her pathway to victory is through the takedown. I think Dudakova will be able to keep it standing. I think Dudakova is going to know that's where Sam Hughes is going to look to win this fight. And I do think Dudakova keeps it standing and she'll win a decision. I think she's the better striker. It's just really all a matter of, can Sam Hughes, again, rush her way in, blitz her way through and out volume Dudakova and then mix it up with takedowns? I don't think so. I'm not too impressed with Dudakova's grappling game. You'll look at her record. Oh yeah, she's won 3 or 4 fights by submission, but they're all against fighters who, again, are not very good. So I think Dudakova wins, but I think it'll be her striking that wins it for her. I'm going to take Victoria Dudakova to win the fight by unanimous decision. To our next one here, it is a ranked fight in the light heavyweight division, a very good one on the undercard. And again, this is a very good card all around. This is the prelim headliner, I do believe, unless Guram Kutadidladze might be rebooked for this card. Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi pulled out of his fight, I believe yesterday, or I guess Wednesday. So who knows if that fight gets rebooked or not, or if Guram gets rebooked or not. Again, if he does, I will put my prediction in the description down below, do a little of a write-up of that. But anyways, we have the prelim headliner here, Alonzo Menifield taking on Azamat Murzakanov, the professional Azamat Murzakanov. This is a good fight. Murzakanov undefeated at 13-0. Menifield's been on a little bit of a run that was just, recently halted by Carlos Ulberg in 12 seconds earlier this year in St. Louis. And that's a little bit concerning because this guy's coming back less than 3 months later to take on Azamat Murzakanov. Murzakanov hits kind of hard. At points, he'll hit hard. His knockouts kind of take more time to get to. But again, Menifield was just knocked out less than 3 months ago. The rule for me is 6 months. And now, again, Ulberg blitzed him. The fight ended really quickly. Or the fight ended in 12 seconds, right? I mean, it was a very fast fight. I believe it was Menifield coming forward in that fight, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, again, Menifield gets checked and he gets put down to the mat in 12 seconds. Was Menifield, was he all the way out in that fight? No, he wasn't. But still, again, you need more than 3 months off after getting knocked down in a fight and taking damage to the head. I don't care the fight was 12 seconds. You need more than 3 months. I would say 6. So that's a little bit concerning because Murzakanov does hit hard. He's not that one-punch knockout type guy, but he does hit hard enough. And for Alonzo Menifield, right, again, decent fighter, right? He was able to go out there and beat Dustin Jacoby. He beat Jimmy Crute, had the draw with Jimmy Crute before, but Menifield hits hard, right? He, dropped Crute twice. He dropped Jacoby. He dropped Serkinov. The guy's a very hard hitter. The fight that really doesn't make sense is when he lost to Will Knight. That still doesn't make sense to me at all. That's the one outlier in his entire career, really. But Menifield is a hard-hitting guy. Murzakanov, though, hits very hard as well. And that's where I do think Menifield's going to have a lot of problems in this fight, especially because he was just knocked out less than 3 months ago. I think these guys are very even in terms of striking games, truly. I would give a slight advantage even to Alonzo Menifield. But again, my problem is Alonzo Menifield I don't think is going to be able to take a big shot from Murzakanov, unlike what Murzakanov is going to be able to take from Alonzo Menifield. Again, the brain needs time to heal. You can't. I don't like a guy fighting less than 3 months after he got knocked out. I just don't like it. That's simple. I don't like it. I think Murzakanov wins. I think he will chin Menifield pretty quickly in this fight, and I think it's over pretty fast. I'm taking Azamat Murzakanov, the professional, to win this fight by first round knockout. Again, it is just, we are rushing Menifield too quickly back in here. Murzakanov, he will be 14-0 at 35 years of age, right? The guy's going to be borderline top 10. Do I think Azamat Murzakanov is going to be a world champion someday? No, I don't. But this is the time, again, you kind of get him in the rankings now. You get him to fight bigger and better guys. I would throw out there Khalil Roundtree. Roundtree got his big fight that he was supposed to fight against Jamal Hill. Obviously couldn't make the date because he failed a drug test. Make him fight Murzakanov, and if he wins, then boost him up the weight class. Yes, I was thinking Murzakanov, Anthony Smith, but damn it, give me Anthony Smith and Bogdan Guskov in an Apex main event because that would just be funny. But yeah, Azamat Murzakanov should be able to chin Alonzo Menifield. I think he will win. Give me Murzakanov again to win the fight by first round knockout. To the main card, we now head. A very good fight to open things up here in the lightweight division. Joel Alvarez takes on Elves Brener. I really like this fight. Truly, it's a good one here, right? Brener was on a little bit of a run before he ran into his last fight where he lost to Orbalai. And that dude's a dog. But for Joel Alvarez, coming off a win in his last one, was able to go out there and submit Mark DeCasey with the Darce choke in July of 2023. It's been a minute since we have seen him. And Joel Alvarez has been very good in the UFC. His only two losses are Damir Magomedov back in 2019, his UFC debut, and Arman Sarukian in 2022. I just want to see Joel Alvarez fight more. That's my problem with him. He's not very active. Again, one fight in 2023, one fight in 2022, one fight in 2021, 2 fights in 2020, 2 fights in 2019. And again, we are in August now. It is the 8th month of the year, and Joel Alvarez is having his first fight of the year. So again, it will likely be another year. Make it now 4 in a row where Joel Alvarez only fought 1 time in a year. That's ridiculous. Again, I think Alvarez has been booked. He has. Yeah, I know he has. He's been booked against Ludovic Klein. Alvarez had visa issues. He was supposed to fight Mateus Rebecki, which is supposed to be, that would be a very good fight for him, in a fight that he probably would have won in hindsight, looking at Rebecki's performance against Carlos Diego Ferreira. But still, couldn't make both those dates. Now he gets Elves Brener, which is not an easy fight at all. Elves Brener is very good, and he's been good in the UFC too. Again, he lost to Orbalai in his last fight, but it is what it is. That guy's a dog. Brener, up until that point, right, beat Zubair Tukhugov over at UFC 284 in 2023, beats Guram Kutadladze, beats Kanyan Kruasheni by TKO in the first round as well. Again, the Guram fight, right, was losing early, but came back, dealt with some adversity and came back and won that fight against Guram in the 3rd round in the Apex. I'm impressed with Elves Brener a lot. He can mix it up on the ground. Again, that was Elves Brener's, big strong suit coming into the UFC was his grappling game. But in the UFC, yes, he did grapple a lot with Orbalai, but it has been the striking that has won Brener a lot of fights so far in the UFC. I think Joel Alvarez is a better grappler, and that's ultimately where I think Joel Alvarez wins this fight. Yes, does Brener have a grappling background and the credentials to keep up with Alvarez, El Phenomeno, Joel Alvarez on the ground? Yeah, he does. I just think Alvarez is slightly better down there, and I do think Alvarez will be able to get the fight down to the ground. Again, Elves Brener will be coming out here to strike. He will look to knock out Alvarez pretty quickly in this fight, but I do think, again, Alvarez's ability of mixing this fight up, getting the fight on the ground, is going to play a huge factor in this one. That's why I'm going to go with the Spaniard and Joel Alvarez to go out here and pick up a victory. I'm going to take him to win this fight by unanimous decision. But I do think it's a razor-thin fight for me, truly. Actually, no, we'll go finish, because again, Joel Alvarez has not gone the distance so far in the UFC, other than his first fight against Damir Magomedov. Again, I know Elves Brener's very good. Actually, no, if Orbalai wasn't able to finish him, I don't think Joel Alvarez is either. Yeah, no. Give me Joel Alvarez by decision. I think this one will go the distance. Because again, Brener's good enough on the ground to the point where Alvarez won't be able to find that submission, but I do think Alvarez will be able to control him. And I guess I'll compare this to Vina Jandiroba, Amanda Lemos, kind of. I just think Joel Alvarez is going to be able to win in transition. He will be able to win the scrambles, and he will be able to find himself on top. Again, in these moments where, again, both these guys are scrambling for position, I do think Alvarez finds himself in a better spot a lot of the time in this fight, right? Again, like I will compare to Vina Jandiroba, Amanda Lemos. Vina Jandiroba was able to out-scramble Amanda Lemos, win in those spots, and ultimately that's how Jandiroba won the fight, because eventually she scrambled, got Lemos' back, and got a submission. I don't think Alvarez is going to be able to get the submission in this fight, but I do think he'll be able to out-scramble his way towards victory. So give me Joel Alvarez to win the fight by unanimous decision. Don't get me wrong, it is entirely possible Elvis Brener keeps the fight on the feet, dictates the fight, keeps it at range, and then again finds a way to finish Joel Alvarez on the feet. Don't get me wrong, that could 100% happen. I am, though, going to go with El Phenomeno, Joel Alvarez, to win the fight by unanimous decision. We go to our next one. This is kind of sad. Tony Ferguson is fighting. He's 40 years old. And it's not like he's fighting a killer, with all due respect to Washington's own Michael Chiesa. He's not fighting a killer, but he's fighting a guy that will definitely beat him. I'm sorry if this gives away the pick, but Michael Chiesa is going to beat Tony Ferguson. The bigger thing in this fight is, how does Michael Chiesa beat Tony Ferguson? Does he beat him by decision? Or does he beat him by submission? Because, guys, Tony Ferguson, I will put this into perspective. The last time Tony Ferguson won a fight, okay? I will try to put this in best perspective as I can in a bunch of different, ranges, right? I'll try to put this into perspective in as many different forms as I can. Guys, the last time Tony Ferguson won a fight, Henry Cejudo was still the double champ. Last time Tony Ferguson won a fight, Donald Trump was still president. Okay? The last time Tony Ferguson won a fight, Tom Brady was still playing football. Now, I know that's not the best one, but to use. Phillip Rivers was still playing football, and Phillip Rivers was still on the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, if you're a football fan, you're going to understand that. If you're not a football fan, But again, that just kind of puts it into perspective, right? Again, I will cater to people who watch football right now, but again, it feels like forever ago where Phillip Rivers was playing football in general. But Phillip Rivers then went on to play for the Indianapolis Colts after playing for the Chargers. The last time Tony Ferguson won a fight, Phillip Rivers was on the Chargers. Like, guys, it's been that long. This is pre-COVID was the last time Tony Ferguson won a fight. And that's when he beat Cowboy. And that puts it into perspective, too. Cowboy was the last guy he beat. Let's go over the losses, because I do this every time Tony Ferguson fights. And again, Tony Ferguson shouldn't be fighting. However, the guy's not going to stop fighting. You know that's the case. You know Tony Ferguson's not going to hang it up. Okay? You know it. I know it. The American people know it. Tony Ferguson's not going to stop fighting. So the UFC might as well keep him around, because he's not going to stop. Because if he does it, if they do cut him, he will go to the PFL, he will fight there, or he will go somewhere else. He will go to BKFC, and he'll fight Conor, or no, he will fight Jake Paul and get knocked out. I'm serious. Something like that will happen. But these are the losses. We go over it every time. Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Michael Chandler's where Tony Ferguson should have stopped fighting. That's where it should have been over. Okay? Head kicked in the face, one of the most brutal knockouts I've ever seen. That's where it should have been done. But it wasn't. It keeps on going. Nate Diaz. Tony looks like he's having fun in that fight, but damn it, Tony Ferguson should not be losing to Nate Diaz. I'm sorry, he shouldn't. He should not be getting submitted by Nate Diaz. He tapped right away from that guillotine choke. He let Nate have the guillotine choke, and he lost. But that fight was fun. It was a main event, UFC 279. It was supposed to be Diaz Chimaev, but it was fun. It was great. Tony looked like he was having fun. I am willing to give him one more fight then, okay? Give him Bobby Green in Utah. He gets submitted by Bobby Green. Now it's done. Get him out of here. It's over. Make him retire. No. Paddy Pimblett. He goes the distance, but he loses. Now the Michael Chiesa fight. And now, Chiesa, again, hasn't fought in a minute. His last time he fought was, again, the same night where Bobby Green beat Tony Ferguson. Chiesa went out there and got doused in the first round by Kevin Holland. Okay? And Chiesa's on a 3-fight losing streak. He lost to Kevin Holland, he lost to Sean Brady, he lost to Vicente Luque, right? When Chiesa went on his little run, right, he beat Diego Sanchez when Joe Rogan was glazing him, to the max. Seriously, go watch Michael Chiesa, Diego Sanchez. It's at UFC 239, the first fight in the main card. Joe Rogan's acting like Michael Chiesa is the next version of Brock Lesnar or something. Like, seriously, like GSP or like Habib. Like, he glazes the hell out of Michael Chiesa in that fight. But anyways, he goes out there and he beats RDA. He calls out Colby Covington. Fight doesn't happen. Beats Neil Magny. Calls out Colby Covington. Doesn't get him. And then again, he goes on his losing streak. Loses to Luque. Gets subbed by Luque. Loses to Sean Brady. Loses to Kevin Holland. Chiesa's going to win this fight. He'll beat Tony Ferguson. And my problem with it, and I'm sure people have said this too, is like, why is Michael Chiesa getting the Tony Ferguson rub? And yes, this is the professional wrestling analogy. It 100% is what I'm about to talk about. But why does Michael Chiesa get the honor of beating Tony Ferguson here? He's lost 3 in a row. Is anyone dying to watch Chiesa fight? No. And damn it, how is Chiesa going to beat Tony Ferguson? He's going to do to him what Dariush did, what Oliveira did. He'll, ground him and just put him on his back the entire fight. Because again, Tony's 40. He's way out of his prime. He shouldn't be fighting anymore. And sure, is he going to take any, head trauma in this fight? No, he's not. But if the UFC is going to throw Tony Ferguson out here every single time, you might as well give me Tony Ferguson against a striker just so I can get some entertainment out of it, which is the horrible thing to say. But guys, we're not going to be entertained by a Michael Chiesa Tony Ferguson fight. It's just going to make us sad. We're going to be sad regardless watching Tony Ferguson, whether him getting knocked out like he did against Michael Chandler, or whether he gets just put on his back for 15 minutes trying to throw up triangles with, half-heartedly, and Michael Chiesa just has him on his back until eventually he submits him, right? So I rather watch Tony go out on his shield and get knocked out because at least he makes a cool moment, rather than us having to watch Tony Ferguson fight off his back for 15 minutes. It's the harsh truth, but it's the way I rather see things. Okay? I think Michael Chiesa eventually gets a submission. I'll take Michael. Yeah, I'm gonna take Michael Chiesa by second round submission. I think eventually he gets it. Just Tony's not very good. And yeah, Chiesa hasn't won a fight in years. He's 36, but Chiesa is still way better than what Tony Ferguson is. Prime example is the Nate Diaz fight. Again, I thought Tony Ferguson should be able to beat that version of Nate Diaz when they fought, 273? I said 279, 273. That version of, again, I thought Tony should have been able to beat that version of Nate Diaz. But again, I forgot what version of Tony Ferguson I'm currently watching. Again, I hope they make him retire. The problem, again, is Tony Ferguson will go fight somewhere else. Let's just hope he does grappling events so he doesn't have to actually take head trauma. But, I don't know if the PFL will take him. I don't know. I don't know if they would. And, this is a fight I've been wanting for a long time, so I'm going to call for it. Keep Tony Ferguson around for one more fight. Let him fight Jordan Levitt. His retirement fight, let him fight Jordan Levitt. I want to see it. Personally, that fight excites me. Because if Tony Ferguson loses to the Monkey King, okay, it's been over, but then everyone knows it's over, which everyone does. But there's no coming back. Like, even Tony wouldn't fight after that, because there's no coming back if you lose to a guy who is nicknamed the Monkey King and literally, twerks and does the splits after he wins fights. Yeah. This is really sad we're talking about Tony Ferguson in this context, but it is what it is. Michael Chiesa definitely wins this fight. It's a matter of if he gets a finish or not. I think he will get a submission eventually. Give me Michael Chiesa to win the fight by second round sub. To the strawweight division, we now head. Mackenzie Dern takes on Lupi Godinez. A very interesting fight that we have even odds on currently here. For Mackenzie Dern, she has struggled recently. It is no secret, right? Back-to-back losses to Amanda Lemos and to Jessica Andrade. And it's always a problem Mackenzie Dern has. If she can't get the fight on the feet, she likely loses. Can't get the fight on the ground. Did I say feet? If she can't get the fight on the ground, she can't win. Okay? Dern's got incredible grappling, and I've always said this. If Mackenzie Dern could wrestle like Tatiana Suarez, if she could wrestle... Hell, if she could even wrestle just like Lupi Godinez, she might be the world champion at this point right now. And again, that's not putting over Godinez's wrestling to the highest degree. I'm just saying Dern has, Habib's famous quote, your wrestling is zero. It's not exactly zero, but it's not much higher. Mackenzie Dern's wrestling is just bad. She can't get fights in the ground. Again, I will use this. If you've watched the channel before, you've heard this little, this little tangent I'm about to go on, but I'm gonna go on it again. The reason why a high-level grappler like Aljamain Sterling is so successful and why he is the greatest bantamweight of all time now, and yes, I said it, and a guy who's going to beat Movsar Evloev later this year, and he's on his way to win the featherweight championship. But the reason why Aljo is so successful and won a title at 135 is because he is at the jiu-jitsu level of guys like Brian Ortega or a fighter of Mackenzie Dern. Sure, maybe not to that same degree, but still Aljo's pretty good down there. Again, human backpack for a reason. The reason why Aljo's so successful though is because he just doesn't have the jiu-jitsu. He's got the wrestling too, right? Sure, Ortega can strike, Mackenzie Dern can't really strike, but still, like that's the comparison I'll always make between Ortega and Sterling. Why I think Sterling's so much better is because yes, both these guys can strike. Ortega has power, sure, but Aljo's wrestling just puts him over the top. And I'll make the comparison to Mackenzie Dern. She has grappling, she's got the BJJ, she just doesn't have the wrestling to get fights down. Lupi Godinez is going to dictate where this fight goes. She is a very good defensive wrestler. Mackenzie Dern has no wrestling. Sure, does Lupi Godinez sometimes go on the attack in terms of her being the aggressor in the wrestling game? 100%. But Lupi Godinez will 100% win a striking fight with Mackenzie Dern, and I am so confident that Lupi Godinez wins this fight. Ultra confident Lupi Godinez wins this fight. Now, I would never put a crazy amount of money on a women's mixed martial arts fight because anything can happen in women's mixed martial arts, but damn it, Lupi Godinez is not losing to Mackenzie Dern. No chance. No way, no how does Lupi Godinez lose to Mackenzie Dern here. Because seriously, okay, how did Godinez lose to Jandiroba? Jandiroba got takedowns. That's fine. Vina Jandiroba's a better wrestler than Mackenzie Dern, okay? Vina Jandiroba, believe it or not, if Tatiana Suarez can't get back to fight Zhang Weili, she's going to be fighting for the belt next. For as crazy as that sounds, yeah, Jandiroba will be fighting for a belt next if Tatiana Suarez doesn't make the date whenever they try to book her and Zhang Weili for the belt. I would assume again it will go to Tatiana Suarez, and I would think Jandiroba is going to fight a Yan Zhan Naun or a Jessica Andrade next. Actually, Andrade's booked, so probably Yan Zhan Naun. But still, Jandiroba is able to get takedowns against Godinez. It's only 2 of them. She went 2 for 9, but still. Jandiroba is a much better wrestler than Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern will not be able to get a takedown in this fight, and even if she does, she's not going to get more than 1 because she needs 2 to win this fight. She's not going to submit Lupi Godinez, I don't think, so she needs 2 takedowns because she needs to win 2 rounds. No way, no how does that happen. Lupi Godinez keeps this fight on the feet, and she boxes Mackenzie Dern's face in, truly. And again, it's not like Lupi Godinez is an excellent striker. It's not like she's that crazy, but she's better than Mackenzie Dern, and that's all that matters. I pick Godinez in almost every fight she's in. That's, again, 100% I do. But still, I'm very confident she beats Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern is so one-dimensional, and I'm going to make this case too. Again, you want to go? I'm going to go on my little wrestling example, and this is why I think Jailton Almeida is going to become the heavyweight champion someday. If he can beat Tom Aspinall, we'll see. That's the one fight. Again, I think Jailton Almeida is going to be, if he's not never the champion, he will be that number 1 guy. He's going to be put in the category with, like, oh, Robert Whittaker was the gatekeeper to the, Robert Whittaker was always the guy where he'd be the world champion if it wasn't for Israel Adesanya. Colby Covington would have been the champion if it wasn't for Kamaru Usman. I think eventually Jailton Almeida will eventually be that in the heavyweight division because of Tom Aspinall, okay? That's my prediction on that, okay? And again, I said this last week, I'll say it again. I'm still, leading the force, and I'm still the conductor of the train in terms of the Jailton Almeida hype train, right? But anyways, I think Jailton Almeida is going to be the number 1 contender for a very long time. But again, why Jailton Almeida is going to be so successful is because he's got great BJJ and his wrestling so good. Mackenzie Dern is not on that level of an Almeida or of a Sterling where they can both wrestle and have good jiu-jitsu. Dern still hasn't learned wrestling. She probably never will, and that's why she's never going to touch the top 5 ever again, because she's figured out she will beat lower level fighters, but she's not beating fighters who are capable of touching the top 5. Lupi Godinez is going to beat her, and she's going to beat her easily. 30-27 Lupi Godinez all day long. To the bantamweight division, Marlon Chito Vera takes on Deiveson Dustigeta, the former flyweight champion, Deiveson Figueiredo. Chito's coming off of that fight 4 months ago to Sean O'Malley, and I get it. Again, Chito has got, an iron chin. It's unable to be cracked. Again, O'Malley hit him with literally everything. you know, even that knee that just buckled his head back and Cheeto straight just ate it and kept fighting. Like, I'm convinced, you know, again, this guy is impossible to be knocked out. Like, seriously, I don't think this guy's ever going to be knocked out. Like, I don't think anyone's ever going to be able to finish this guy on the feet. So I'll straight up say it. Deiveson Figueiredo is not going to finish him. However, I do think Dudakova is better, though. Again, if that gives it away pretty quickly, so be it. Figueiredo's like very good at 135 pounds, man. He's really an underrated guy for the weight class. Sure, is he a little bit undersized because of his height? Yeah, that is fair. He's 5'5". But Deiveson's quick at 135 pounds. He still hits fairly hard. And he's not killing himself to make the 125-pound weight class anymore. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. Cheeto, for as good as the guy's chin is, he just fought 4 months ago. He took all that damage. Is that really good for, you know, fighting right away? I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. I think Deiveson Figueiredo is going to beat Cheeto Vera. I don't think he's going to get the finish. I don't. But, and again, it's always been the thing with Cheeto too. Like Cheeto Vera got the most undeserved title fight of all time. Truly, it was the most undeserved title fight ever, right? He just got the second fight with O'Malley because he beat him once, but like, what did he do to deserve that fight? I don't know. He lost to Sandhagen. He lost every single round in that fight. And then he beat Pedro Munoz in a boring fight. And then he loses to O'Malley, and now we're back here, right? Again, Cheeto takes a while to get going. He's more of a 5-round guy. This is only a 3-round fight. Dudakova is going to win the first round, and then all he's got to do is just win one of the next two. I think he's going to win the second, and I'll say it, I think he wins the third too. I just think Figueiredo, again, he will get out to the better start here. Again, historically, Marlon Cheeto Vera is known for just being slow to start fights and needing a lot of time to get going. He really, you know, but the thing is, in the Sandhagen fight, it was the entire fight. Cheeto never got going, right? And even in the O'Malley fight too, he never won a round in that one. And yeah, he threw back at Sean, but we were still again waiting for, okay, when's Cheeto gonna turn it up? And he never did, right? So Marlon Cheeto Vera, in two of his last 3 performances, we've been stuck waiting like, hey, he hasn't pulled the trigger. Now, I will give it to him in the Munoz fight. He looked good in that fight. And again, that was one of the rare times where Cheeto did win a first round. But Pedro Munoz is like a top 12 guy, and he's not, again, a former champion who hasn't lost at his new weight class like Figueiredo. Again, Figgy hasn't lost at 135 pounds yet, and I understand it's Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. Those aren't necessarily the top guys, but this is still a very tough fight for, you know, Cheeto Vera, because I don't think he can straight up outstrike Figueiredo. Vera's only chance to win this fight is if he knocks Dudakova out. I don't think he does. I think Figueiredo runs circles around him in terms of the striking game, because I think Cheeto just is going to take too long to get going in this fight. And again, we're fighting 4 months after that domination he took against Sean O'Malley. I just don't like his chances in this fight. And I get it. Deiveson's 36 years old, fighting at 135 pounds. But simply put, this is not the fight he loses. Deiveson Figueiredo is going to take it. I think, again, he's going to get out to the quicker start. And I just think he's going to be the all-around better kickboxer in this fight. Straight up, pretty much just boxer. Because, again, Cheeto's just so slow to start fights. And Cheeto will be just stuck waiting so much of the time just to land that one big shot. Where at the same time, I think Figueiredo is going to be doing all that damage, and I think Deiveson's going to be able to win rounds. That's why I'm going to take Figueiredo to win the fight by unanimous decision. Where does that put him in the weight class? I don't know. Right? Sandhagen, Nurmagomedov is later. We'll match guys up later on, I guess. But Figueiredo, again, will be in the top 4. I'm not against him and Piotr Jan next. That's all I'm saying. But for now, give me Deiveson Figueiredo to win this fight by unanimous decision. Co-main event, Shara Magomedov returns to take on Michal Oleksiejczuk. And shout out to Michal Oleksiejczuk, right? I mean, another fight here in 2024. He is 0-2 in 2024, but fought first at UFC 299, where he got submitted in the first round by Michel Pereira. His next fight drops Kevin Holland in the first 20 seconds of their fight at UFC 302 in the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. However, falls him to the ground and gets submitted with an armbar in 94 seconds. I thought Michel broke his arm. Apparently he didn't. And now here he is to take on Shara Magomedov here in Abu Dhabi. interesting, it really is, because again, I'm glad this fight's on this card, because obviously the original co-main event was Nick Diaz versus Vicente Luque. I 100% guarantee you Nick Diaz did not know where Abu Dhabi was, and he realized, oh crap, I don't want to go all the way over there to fight, so I would expect Nick to get rebooked somewhere in the States this year. I'll make the case you throw Nick Diaz in the same card as Conor McGregor in December. I'm just saying, not like we're ever going to get that fight, but I think it'd be kind of interesting to see, again, if a Diaz and McGregor are on the same card again. I'm just saying, I think it'd be interesting. I think it'd be an interesting development. If that's not possible, throw him on the card, and you can throw him on the Utah card, or you can throw him in November at MSG. But anyways, Shara Magomedov versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. Shara's 2-0 in the UFC, right? Win over Bruno Silva and a win over Antonio Tricoli in his last fight. He eventually finishes Tricoli in the 3rd round. Shara's striking's pretty good. It is. Now, again, will he get beat once he fights better guys? I think so. I think, again, Shara's a little bit overrated. Or I think he's overrated in terms of the casual fan. I think, again, some of the, if you're, again, I will say this again, if you're a hardcore fan, if you're watching my video, most likely you are a hardcore fan of the sport. Hell, I literally spent 6 minutes earlier talking about Shamil Gaziev and Dontel Mays. But again, I think we all kind of expect Shara to get checked at some point. I won't say fraud checked, but I will say checked by a better fighter eventually at 185 pounds. Again, once you get to those rankings at 185, these guys are good. I'm even talking about number 15, Chris Curtis. I'm talking about, a guy that can definitely beat him. Kyle Borja would take him down and put him on his back. Given there are guys I think Shara would beat in the top 15 as well, right? I think he could beat Roman Dolidze. I think he could. I think he would have a chance against Jack Hermanson. I think Hermanson would fraud check him. I think Shara would have a very tough out if he fought Joe Pyfer. I think Joe Pyfer would beat him. But again, there are guys, if they do want to protect Shara and get him to the top of the weight class eventually, again, there is a pathway to get Shara up there. I do think there is. You book him strategically. You make sure he gets that Roman Dolidze fight to crack his way into the top 10. You take it from there. But anyways, Shara versus Michal Oleksiejczuk here. It is interesting, Michal's already back, but again, that's fine. He didn't really take any damage. All that happened in that fight is that he got submitted, so I'm not concerned at all. Like we were talking about earlier with Alonzo Menifield coming back so quickly, that's not a factor in this fight at all. Oleksiejczuk can strike, and again, that's going to be what this fight will be. It's going to be a striking affair between Shara Magomedov and Michal Oleksiejczuk. Shara has shown no interest in the UFC so far, grappling or wrestling at all. Again, he has not attempted a takedown. Even though it might not be the worst idea if he tried it here. I get it. Shara is a complete striker. He really is. He's not like a complete striker, like he can do anything. But like in terms of his game, that's what he is. He's just a striker. But if there was ever a time for him to try to take a guy down, it would be in this fight. Because again, Michal Oleksiejczuk has such a glaring weakness in his game. It's the grappling. He's been submitted 6 times in the UFC. That might be every single loss he has in the promotion has been by submission. Holland, Pereira, Borja, Crute, Ovent St. Preux, Jacoby beat him by decision. His only other submission loss comes back in his 3rd professional mixed martial arts fight back in 2014. But 5 of his 6 losses in the UFC are by submission. Right? That's how he's lost fights. Jacoby went in there and just outstruck him for 15 minutes, which is something Shara Magomedov I think will be able to do. Shara, at least from what we know, I think has been preparing for a fight. There was rumblings that Shara would get that fight against Kevin Holland in the main event of UFC Denver. I never really thought that was all too serious. And again, we ended up with Tracy Cortez and Rose Namajunas. And if Kevin Holland was in the main event against Shara, I probably would have gone to plane and gone to Colorado. But anyways, I do think, again, I think Shara has been somewhat preparing for a fight. I think, again, the UFC has wanted him on this Abu Dhabi card, and I think they're going to want him on that pay-per-view card in October as well. Michal did just fight, but was he preparing for a fight? I don't think so. What are Michal Oleksiejczuk's injuries coming from the Holland fight? Obviously, it's nothing significant because, again, he wouldn't get cleared to fight just a month and a half after getting his arm broken because, again, obviously, he didn't get his arm broken because he wouldn't be fighting this fight if he did. So I'm not concerned in that with Oleksiejczuk, but in terms of you're taking this fight so quickly on short notice against a very tough out in Shara Magomedov, who again, I think will get beat once he fights better strikers and guys that can get him to the ground and wrestle him. But I don't think Oleksiejczuk's the first guy to beat him. I think Shara Magomedov is a little bit better technically sound-wise compared to Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk might have some more pop in his shots, but I don't think it plays too much of a factor in this one. I don't think Oleksiejczuk is just going to one-shot chin him in this fight. I think Shara gets it done. I think eventually Magomedov breaks him in there. I'm taking Shara Magomedov to win this fight by second round TKO. Again, Shara is going to be bigger. He should have actually, he will not have a reach advantage in this fight, but he just is the taller fighter. Yeah, I'm going to take Shara Magomedov to win this fight. 13-0 going into this one. I don't think Oleksiejczuk's the first guy to beat him. Again, on short notice, it's just tough. If Shara just doesn't have a grappling game, he really doesn't. He's a pure kickboxer. Because again, Kevin Holland went out there and subbed Oleksiejczuk, right? Like, and not to say Holland's bad or anything, but like, again, Kevin Holland wants to strike, and again, he did get put on his back in that fight because he got dropped. But again, the pathway to beating Michal Oleksiejczuk is through grappling. Shara is not going to do that, so it's a good test because again, Michal Oleksiejczuk is a kickboxer at heart, and that's what he is, and that's what he wants to do. So again, I expect Shara to win, but I think it's a very good, way to measure how good he is by having him fight Michal Oleksiejczuk, right? I think that's a good way to put this fight. We're taking Shara to win the fight by second round TKO. But again, this is going to gauge truly how good this guy is, I think. Because, again, Michal Oleksiejczuk definitely has the capability of putting this guy down, knocking him out. So let's see how good, again, Shara Magomedov is in this fight. I would expect him, though, to win this fight. We're taking him by second round TKO. On to our main event. In the bantamweight division, Corey Sandhagen takes on Umar Nurmagomedov. I mean, is it Dagestani privilege? It kind of is, right? Like, what are we doing here? Like, again, I understand. Again, Umar Nurmagomedov's undefeated. He's 17-0. The guy still has not fought a ranked opponent. And sure, is it because no ranked guys want to fight him? Maybe. But, like, how do we go from fighting Nate Maness, Houney Barcelos, getting booked to fight Corey Sandhagen, pulling out of the fight, fighting Baskat Alkaman, beating him by decision in not the best fight, getting dropped in that fight, by the way, too, to then getting Corey Sandhagen? Now, is Umar capable of beating Corey Sandhagen? 100% he is. It's just that if his name wasn't Umar Nurmagomedov, he would not be in this main event spot. The main event of this card would be Sandhagen and Figueiredo. And if, Umar Nurmagomedov wasn't named Umar Nurmagomedov, maybe he'd be lucky enough to find himself in a fight with Chito Vera. Okay? That's kind of the way I see things here. Now, not to say Umar's not good. I think Nurmagomedov is very capable, and don't get me wrong, I think he's got a very good chance to beat Corey Sandhagen. Don't get that mistaken at all. I'm just saying he's not really deserving of this fight. Because again, if he was not named Umar Nurmagomedov, you're likely not getting the number 2 ranked guy in the world after beating Basmat Alkaman, a guy making his UFC debut, and beating him by decision. And a guy who you fought on very short notice as well. In Alkaman's case. Now, the fight itself, Umar 100% has a chance to win this fight. I think he's got a very good chance to win the fight. Again, he will not really, I don't think he's going to take chances on the feet with Sandhagen, because why should he? Sandhagen will outstrike him. But on the ground, Umar Nurmagomedov, I think, has the advantage. Again, Sandhagen really hasn't been put on his back against a very good wrestler since the Aljamain Sterling fight, and look what happened in that fight. Aljo took him down, took his back right away, jumped on the back, got the body triangle, put him out with a rear naked choke, right? That's the last time Corey's fought a very capable wrestler. Don't get me wrong, he's fought good wrestlers in the past since that, but guys where that's their main point of attack and that's what they want. That's where they want fights to be. Again, Umar, is he proven? No. Is this the biggest step up in competition you could possibly get? 100% yes. But this feels like a very good matchup fight for him, as long as he's able to take down Corey Sandhagen, which I think he will be able to, right? And again, I know what you're thinking. The third round of the Alkaman fight, he's just kind of hanging on, not really doing much. Sure, it wasn't an impressive performance, but he still won 30-25, still won 30-26 on the cards. That's still not a bad performance at all. Sure, should he have finished the guy? 100%. But he didn't even lose a round in that fight. The guy still hasn't lost a round in the UFC. I think he beats Corey Sandhagen. I think he beats him. I'm taking Umar Nurmagomedov to beat Sandhagen. I think he gets it done by decision. I'm taking Nurmagomedov to win 50-45. Just because I don't know if Corey can stay off his back in this fight. Because I do think Nurmagomedov is the better wrestler. And again, I'm not saying the guy's not a skillful fighter, obviously, right? Hell, I'm picking him to beat the number 2 guy in the world in Corey Sandhagen. Again, a guy who has fought for the interim title before, who was on the cusp of another title shot. Because if Corey wins this fight, he should be fighting for the belt next. I don't think Umar gets a shot after this. Actually, he might if he wins. Because who else is there? Unless Pantoja comes up, which we'll see. But anyways, I'm not saying he's not capable, because obviously I'm picking him to win the fight. I just don't think he deserves the opportunity yet. That's really what I'm saying. But again, if he's capable of winning the fight, so maybe he should get the fight. I don't know. But it's just, again, my point is, if he was, I'm going to make up a random name, if he was Todd McGee from Bakersfield, California, training out of Extreme Couture, he probably wouldn't be getting this fight right now. That guy would be getting, if he's lucky, he'd be getting Chito Vera, but probably wouldn't even get the jump to number 4. He'd probably get a Mario Bautista or a Kyler Phillips, which are good fights. But again, I just don't think he's deserving of this spot. But nothing against Umar himself. He can't control that. He's being given the opportunity. He should go out here and win this fight if he can. And I do think he will win the fight. I'm taking Umar to win the fight by unanimous decision. Again, don't get me wrong. Corey Sandhagen's a better striker, 100%. But I do think Umar's able to close distance in this fight. I think he's able to get takedowns. We haven't seen Corey Sandhagen put on his back and being backed up against the fence since the Aljamain Sterling fight. And I understand that's been 4 years now, it's a long time. But that's just the way Umar fights, and I think Umar's able to push him back, and I think Umar's able to take him down. I don't know how many takedowns he's going to need, but I think he's going to be able to ride control a lot in this fight, and I think Umar Nurmagomedov is definitely going to be able to win this fight. Also, another factor, again, guys, Dagestani guys don't lose in Abu Dhabi. They just don't. Take that for what you will. I'm just saying. Again, I'm picking winners. I'm trying to evaluate the fight the best I can. These guys don't lose in Abu Dhabi. They really don't. Umar Nurmagomedov likely will not lose out here. I think he wins. It's kind of on home turf for him. The crowd's going to be rallying around Umar in this one. The fans want him to win. It's going to be a home game for Umar. I think he gets it done. It's not like he's fighting in Denver in this fight. It's not like he's fighting in the States. Sandhagen has to come overseas to fight him, and I think it's a tough fight for Corey because, again, I do think Umar is able to neutralize the striking game, get Corey Sandhagen backing up a lot in this fight, and I think he's going to be able to get takedowns to get the fight down to the mat. So it's going to be Umar Nurmagomedov to go out there, and I think, honestly, again, as crazy as this sounds, I think he pitches a shutout against Corey Sandhagen. I think he wins it by decision. Now, I think Umar Nurmagomedov versus Sean O'Malley is an interesting fight. And I think Umar Nurmagomedov versus Merab Dvalishvili are interesting fights. I think both those are very interesting. Right now, I think he'd have a better chance to beat O'Malley than he would against Merab. But again, we'll see where that gets us. I would expect, though, the winner of this fight to get a title shot just because, again, where Corey is, he's second. And if Umar wins, he'll be 18-0 in the top 3 of the weight class. You'd probably give him the title shot. But again, we are taking Umar Nurmagomedov to win. Where does that leave, again, Deiveson Figueiredo, who we talked about earlier? That, I think, books him against Piotr Jan. If Chito somehow wins, again, Chito versus Piotr Jan could be next as well. And you're thinking, oh, where does that leave Jose Aldo? I do Jose Aldo and Henry Cejudo. I understand Cejudo's 0-2 in his return. But he's still technically ranked 5th. And it was a fight that we were supposed to see before the pandemic. We were supposed to see that at UFC 250. It was originally supposed to be in Brazil. It was supposed to be Cruz. It became Cruz versus Cejudo, but originally it was Aldo Cejudo in Brazil. I think that's a fight we could revisit now. Again, the loser of this fight, if the loser of Aldo Cejudo can kind of just be looked at as a guy who's never going to touch the belt ever again or even get an opportunity at the belt again, the winner of that fight, though, again, back in title contention in the top 5, that's how I do it. Again, I do Aldo Cejudo, the winner of Vera Figueiredo versus Jan, and then I do the winner of Sandhagen, Nurmagomedov versus the winner of Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley. And yes, where does that leave Song Yadong? I don't know. Dominic Cruz, is he ever going to come back? I wouldn't mind Dominic Cruz, Song Yadong, I'm just saying. Again, it keeps the whole Dominic Cruz versus ATT rivalry, or not ATT, sorry, Team Alpha Male rivalry alive as well. So I wouldn't mind that if Dominic Cruz is ever going to come back and fight. Throw him out there against Song Yadong in a main event. Hell, do it in Sacramento. That would be kind of crazy, right? Uriah Hall in the corner, Dominic Cruz heading into Sacramento. I'd love that. I'd go, obviously. So actually, yeah, I'd actually really like to see that. Dominic Cruz and Song Yadong in Sac. I think that'd be kind of cool. But anyways, we are taking Umar Nurmagomedov to beat Corey Sandhagen here in the main event from Abu Dhabi this weekend. Again, from the Etihad Arena. We'll be back tomorrow, folks, for PFL predictions in the playoffs with the heavyweights and the women's flyweights. And we'll be back next week for our UFC Apex card with the rematch you didn't know you wanted until you got it. And maybe you still don't want it. Marcin Tybura and Sergey Spivak. So, folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank you all for watching. At Mamba, forever.